And look who is back. By popular demand, Chef Brenna is returning on the show. Thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, not a problem. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and she is going to share with us one of her famous Italian soups filled with some hearty potatoes, turkey sausage, kale, you name it. So that's going to be on the menu, and then I'm going to make some baking powder biscuits to go along with it, and then we'll top it off with some no-bake chocolate cookies. They are just scrumptious. Alright, so let's get down to it. So where are we going to start, Brenna?
Well, to start, we're going to take our sausage, which we have about a pound of just mild turkey sausage today. I prefer zesty, but you never know what kind of guests you're going to have over.
Yes.
So we'll start with the milder side today. I've removed the turkey from its casings with about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of olive oil, just enough so that it doesn't stick to the pan.
Now, when you remove it from the casings, what do you take the sausage and kind of take it from the middle and
you can break them that way if they're colder. That can help. I actually just twist the center and then push it out the ends to get it going. But we're gonna turn the heat up a little bit and brown that sausage down for us.
And so we're basically just throwing it in there and mashing it into pieces and browning it as we push it around the pan. So very simple.
And we only used a pound today, but if you have some meat lovers, you can always opt for 1.5 to 2 pounds. Just depends on how hearty you want it and how much you're looking for.
Yes.
I chose turkey. I personally not a big fan of the pork. I'll eat it on occasion, but for me this is better. If you do use pork, don't put the olive oil in. It will be greasy enough itself to brown out. Same with beef.
As always, all of our ingredients were bought at Roth's Fresh Markets, specifically the Sunny Slope Market, but you could find these ingredients at your local grocer as well. I always prefer to get my meats and veggies at Roth's. I trust them, but whatever your likes are fine.
All right, and while this is browning, Kevin, why don't I have you finish prepping our potatoes for the soup? I think I have a couple left to wash if you want to scrub those off.
So what we're doing is we're not peeling the potatoes, we're going to scrub the dirt off. So I always like to do it under running water and just take a scouring pad and just kind of scrub it until it starts getting white. Make sure to get the ends too. There we go. You'll notice how it's more of a white now, not dark brown. So that is perfect. So now we're going to go right over here.
All right, and then to cut the potatoes, we're going to cut them in these kind of circular pieces, leaving them about a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch thick. You want them nice and big.
So we're going to do nice and thick slices.
If they're too thin, they actually will kind of disintegrate in your soup. So you want to leave them big enough that we can actually do that.
So in other words, you're going to be kind of like, almost like potato chips, or
they're our starch for this dish.
Exactly.
All right, and our sausage is browning up now.
So then, do we pre-cook these potatoes at all, or do they just cook in the soup?
Completely raw. They'll be cooked in the soup. Once we get our broth and our bases all ready.
Okay.
It's nice to have them ready to go when you need them.
Yes.
And the sausage, if you take a peek, we're leaving it slightly larger than you would any taco or other ground meat dish, because we do want chunks for the soup. We don't want it too small that you're missing out on that savoriness in the soup. Once it's brown, we'll pull the meat. We're almost there. And it cooks nice and fast.
What we're doing is we're doing about 6 to 8 potatoes, depending on the size. So if they're larger potatoes, you might be able to do maybe 5 or 4. But these were, they were anywhere from small to medium size.
Exactly. And I like mine heartier. If you don't prefer potatoes, you can always cut them down a bit. It's up to your personal taste. I like potatoes. Maybe it's because I'm a redhead and people think I'm Irish, but potatoes are delicious.
So now we're going to pull the meat here when it gets browned, right?
Yes, and it's just about there. Our pan is browning. I can smell the Italian spices now prevalent in the steam we're getting. I wish you could smell it.
I can tell you it smells delicious.
Perfect. Okay, let's pull this meat out.
Okay.
We have a slotted spoon because we need to keep the oils in there for cooking our vegetables after.
So just kind of drain them as you pull them. Kind of leave some of the juice in there.
Perfect.
Right.
And so let's turn the heat down on the burner and we'll leave that oil because we'll need it hot for once we chop these onions up close in.
Okay.
I'm gonna get started on that.
Could it, be necessary for some people maybe to add some extra oil once you remove the meat? Like
it is possible if it's not enough to saute the onions that they become translucent. You'll need a little more. We don't want too much oil though because once the soup is cooking, you'll get the oil on top, and we don't want an oily soup.
All right, sounds good.
So let's just take these bad boys.
Are you going to do about a half onion or?
We're going to do a whole onion today for the base here. And I like to chop mine pretty fine when I do it. Nice and strong today. I will have to let him finish this one up.
Yes.
So I can wash my hands. And he'll get a nice cut on the last little quarter we have going.
So just do it until it's fairly fine cut. Not too big of chunks, but you can leave some, smaller sized chunks in there. They'll cook down just fine in the soup.
Once you're all done with those, Kevin, our pan does need just a bit of oil. It's a little bit dry. I'm not getting any run very much coming in and out of it. So we're just going to add probably about a half a teaspoon more of oil, just a teeny bit.
Okay.
And we're going to toss in those onions.
And again, it's extra virgin olive oil again.
Of course. Since we're going with the Italian flavor, olive oil does have a taste to it. It's nice and bold and thick, so that will add some flavoring to our soup as well.
Alright, these are almost done here.
Are you crying, honey?
A little bit. Yeah. You're bringing me to tears. It's just so delicious.
It's always fun cutting onions in the kitchen. Plenty of jokes to go around.
Yeah. Alright, I think we're ready here.
Alright.
I'll get one last little fine-tuned pass and we're good to go. Okay.
Just dump those in there. I'll crank the heat back up. Medium to high heat. Don't go too hot because we don't want to caramelize the onions. We're just looking to saute them.
Okay.
They're pretty white right now if you take a peek in. Once they go translucent, we are going to add some garlic in there. We got a ways to go. It usually takes about 3 to 5 minutes for a whole onion to saute in oil to get it down and translucent. And if you saw from the pan, it is starting to brown. We want the brown in the pan. That's the other plus of not using too much oil. That's going to give a flavor and a base to our soup. So we're just creating complex flavors right now and building them up for our soup base.
Perfect. Well, while we're browning the onions, we'll send it off to Tim, who's going to give us some cool tidbits about soup and the healthy benefits it can have. Tim?
Well, thank you, Kevin. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more about soup. It's just smelling the delicious smell of Chef Brenna's soup just reminds me of facts about soups that everyone doesn't really know. Like, there's a few on there that I didn't know, that the French is like a major factor of why we have broth. There was a French king that wanted to see his reflection in his soup because he just wanted to see himself in the soup. And so that's where broth comes from. He sent his chefs in the kitchen every day until they came up with a soup-like substance that is broth today, able to see himself in his soup. And just to go along with the French women, they are told not to chew a lot because they would start getting more wrinkles and stuff as they chew like meat and different things like that. And so that's why they enjoy soup, because you just pick up your bowl and you just sip and you enjoy it without getting too many wrinkles. That's what the French women were so scared about getting. So moving on to where soup first started, it first was reported about 6000 BC. And that is a long, long time ago. And the first soup was hippopotamus. I was like, when I first read that, I was like, wait, hippopotamus? Really? We eat hippos? And I was like, I'm glad we don't have that anymore, because that just kind of takes the feature of it when you're at the zoo seeing the hippopotamus. You're like, wow, 6000 BC, we ate hippopotamus as a soup. That's just astounding. So when you go to your local zoo, keep that fact in mind. And so just smelling that great creation of this Italian soup that Brenna is creating with us today, it smells so good. I just can't wait to be able to go home and create that soup and see how well it turns out. So right back at you, Chef Kevin and Chef Brenna, and this is In the Know with Tim.
Welcome back. Thank you, Tim, for all of that great knowledge. So we are now seeing that the onions are becoming translucent and they're getting a slight brown tint to them.
And we don't want it to go any further, so we're coming back here and we're adding the garlic. We're doing 4 cloves today, 4 large ones, because we like it a little bit garlicky. You can cut down on the garlic to kill some of the spice. You can always add a little bit more if that's what you like.
And you could always do minced garlic that's in the jar as well as an alternative, if you don't like pressing it yourself. But Brett and I think we both agree that fresh garlic is the best.
It is, by far. And this is only going to take about a minute. We want it just to get fragrant. We don't want to burn the garlic as well. We're starting to get there and smell it. And last, we're adding about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons. We're using about 1.5 right now. If you don't like it spicy, cut back on it.
And what are they?
This is crushed red peppers, and then we have about a teaspoon of fennel to spice it up too.
Okay.
Some Italian spices we can throw in there.
That is smelling delicious.
Once that is gone about a minute, we're going to crank that heat down and we're going to start stacking it.
Okay.
What's next? I will show you. We also have to prep the kale really quick before we get there. I've left one to show you. Stalk of kale is just leafy and green. We've rinsed these already. Sometimes they can be a bit muddy. We don't want the stalk of these because they're not quite about the texture we're looking for on this. So we're going to cut right down that center stalk piece. Cut it right out. Usually comes right off. And then what I like to go through is just come back and just rough chop it down a little bit. Bring it in, and I like larger pieces. You can purchase the pre-cut bags at your grocer, but they do tend to be quite stocky, as I've learned from the past. So I recommend buying it by the bunch. It's also cheaper by weight. All right, so Kevin, you look about ready over there?
Yes, I think we're ready.
Okay, we're gonna put the meat back in here, and we're gonna do a stack job in the inside, and we can get some of that spicy oil as well.
And we'll get those juices in
Yes,
here.
that spicy oil we had.
Get the meat
Okay,
in there.
as you can see at the base of our pan, it's pretty brown and black right now. So to lift those flavors we've built up, we're gonna take the wine, and we're gonna add probably about half a cup to a whole cup of wine in there and scrape the bottom good. We want all that black up from the base.
Okay.
It's gonna be the base of our soup.
And what kind of wine?
We just used a basic white wine. This is a big house white wine. It's California made. If you're worried about alcohol content, most of it burns off, along with white wine is low in sulfates. So if you have problems with sulfates, there will be little to no in here, which is also nice.
The base is clearing up nicely since this wine has been put in. So you're just, that you can actually see the bottom of the pan now. So
yes, and as you can see, it's that nice caramely brown color. It's not too dark. If it's too dark, you may have burnt. And you don't want it too dark because you'll have a burnt taste to your soup. We definitely don't want that for a whole batch.
yes.
And now that we have that going on, we're gonna stack the potatoes in. Because we're using so many, we stack them in versus dumping because we need that room in the top to add the liquids and the kale.
So we'll layer them in like you're doing a ratatouille. Just on top, covering the base. All over that meat.
It makes great sense too because we're trying to do this whole one dish thing, which is always nice. Less dishes are a plus.
Yes.
Let's stack those. And as you can see, we're losing all of the image of our base now with just potatoes. And you're more than welcome to use any type of potatoes in here you prefer.
Could you actually do like maybe like red potatoes
You can
or
do
Yukon
red.
Gold? Or?
Yukon Gold are actually my mother's favorite when I
Okay.
make this recipe for her.
Excellent.
So it's up to preference or on what you have on hand too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, usually you can get a better deal on the russets. So like if budget's your concern, then russets is probably your best way to go.
we did go through and make sure that we didn't have any black chunks in them, that they were all good quality slices
all
of potatoes.
good slices, yes.
All right, before we add the kale, we're gonna add about 4 to 6 cups of chicken broth. We're using free-range organic today. And our nice little containers here have 4 cups exactly, so we'll use
About 1.5.
1.5 of them. This creates a really rich base with our rich broth with the base we've already created. So if you're not wanting it too rich, again, if you're looking for more of a mild soup, go towards the 4 cups versus 6, because you can always replace with water.
Okay.
All right, and then just on top, we're gonna float our kale. Right here. It's nice and roughly chopped. Again, we might have to tack it down a little bit to fit it in. And then,
We put the top on and let it steam and cook.
we can, because the broth is looking a little low to me, we're gonna add about 1 cup of water on top.
Okay.
Just freeballing the look of it because I'm worried that we won't get enough going on and cooking down of the kale. So we'll do that so it's floating a little bit in there. Add the top on, medium-high heat, 20 to 30 minutes. You'll see the kale slowly steam down. And when you think it's about done, go ahead, take a fork or a knife and we'll test the potatoes, make sure they're cooked all the way through.
Perfect. Thank you, Brenna.
No problem.
So now what I'll do is I'm going to teach you my famous baking powder biscuits to go along with this soup, and then we'll finish it off with that dessert. But while we're getting that set up, we'll send it over to Kelsey to give us kind of a sneak peek at what baking powder is. Kelsey?
Thank you, Kevin. So, baking powder is a leavener. So it's usually made up of cornstarch, acid salts, and baking soda. So once the can is opened, baking powder normally lasts about 6 to 9 months. And you should store it in a dry place because if you store it in a refrigerator, then it kind of adds condensation to the can and it can ruin your baking powder. So it's not good for cooking after that. Thank you, Kevin, again, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the cooking with Kevin today. Have a good day. Bye.
Welcome back. Thank you very much, Kelsey. And the baking powder is going to be an essential part of these biscuits. So I thought that was great that she was doing that segment. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off, we're going to take 2 cups of flour.
Okay.
Okay? This is just all-purpose unbleached white flour. And then we're going to take 1/2 teaspoon salt. If we can get it out there. There we go. And then it's 4 teaspoons baking powder.
Lots of baking powder.
Yes, that is essential to nice, fluffy, moist biscuits. Then we're going to take 1/2 teaspoon cream of tartar. and then finally 2 tablespoons of white sugar. Okay, so we're going to kind of mix this together.
Even spread in there, huh?
Yeah. All right, now we're going to set this aside. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take this 1 egg.
1 egg.
And we're going to take 1/3 of a cup of heavy whipping cream and 1/3 of a cup of 1% milk.
And put them all together,
Yes.
huh?
Perfect. So now we'll beat that.
Promise we're not making scrambled eggs?
Yes.
All right.
All right. So now we're going to add this.
Right in there.
Perfect. And then as I'm mixing it, go ahead and add 1/2 cup extra light olive oil.
Now, is there a difference in the extra light versus extra virgin or just regular olive oil?
Yeah, the extra virgin olive oil is going to have a much more potent flavor. So you want to do extra light because you don't want to be tasting the oil. You just do it until nice fluffy dough forms. And while we let this rest, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back. So we let it rest for about a minute. This allows for the baking powder to take effect and actually causes it to be very moist and fluffy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just spray the cooking sheet with the non-stick spray, and we're going to do it by spoonfuls. And you can kind of shape them into like a little bit more of a round mound. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. It just depends if you want it to be nice and fashionable when you serve them.
Now, you're not forming them. Is that because we don't want to get rid of the fluff of them, correct?
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes, yeah. And so did you want to help?
Yeah, I can work on
Here, I'll
that.
get another spoon.
Do you know about the size we're using here?
It's about I don't know, maybe like just a little bit smaller than a tennis ball, I guess, or maybe a little bigger than a golf ball would be what I would say.
So probably about 2 tablespoons on these then?
Yeah. That's what I'd say. Perfect.
Go right ahead. The baker in me wants to roll these out.
Yeah, I find that that mine don't come out nearly as fluffy or tall when I roll them out and cut them out the traditional way. So I like to do what's called the drop baking powder biscuit, where you just scoop it out into little balls and put them in there. Perfect. It should make close to a dozen. I need a little bit more dough for this one. And while you're doing this, you should have the oven preheating to 450 degrees. And you'll cook it for about 10 to 12 minutes or until they're golden brown and not doughy. So we'll go ahead and stick these in the oven, get them cooking.
I can't wait.
Alright, so now, are you ready to learn how to do the chocolate no-bake cookies?
I heard that you have a twist on them from the traditional recipe my mom used to make.
Yes.
All right, I'm excited.
We don't actually do any kind of sugar or anything added like that. We actually do honey and pure maple syrup.
I'm
So,
excited.
yeah, yes. All right, so let's go and do it. So we're going to take a regular, smaller saucepan size, and we're going to put in about 1/3 of a cup of chocolate chips.
Perfect.
And then we're going to put about...
Now, are those milk or dark or semi-sweet?
They're semi-sweet. Very good question, yes. And then we're going to put about 2 tablespoons of extra light olive oil in. And then we're going to put about the same amount of honey.
Delicious.
So about 2 tablespoons again. I'm just eyeballing it because it's a lot easier. That way. And then we're going to put about 1/4 of a cup of peanut butter.
If you want to get that off, please.
Whoop. There we go.
Perfect. And then finally, we're going to put about 1 tablespoon of maple syrup.
Now
This is pure, real maple syrup. You can't really get the same result with the pancake maple syrup that you buy at the store.
most are artificially flavored, so
Yes.
it just would not be the same.
So we're going to mix that around until the chocolate chips completely melt and merge with the peanut butter to make a delectable sauce.
Now what heat are we looking at here, Kevin?
We're going to put it on about mid-low, like around like 3 or 4. You don't want it to cook too fast because it will burn to the bottom. You want it to be a slow melt. Yes, that is looking very good.
Oh, this is exciting. This is definitely not my mother's no-bake cookie.
Yeah, and this, what I'm showing you today is makes about a dozen. So if you need to serve more, you can just double it, what the measurements I told you. Perfect. Let's do it a little bit more until the chocolate chips have melted down a little bit more.
It smells delicious.
And it is delicious. So while you're doing this, you can get out a piece of wax paper because once the oatmeal is added, which we're going to add about a cup of oatmeal, you'll scoop it out onto the wax paper and allow it to cool into little clumps cookies.
Almost there.
Yes.
And wouldn't you say it's important to keep moving the mixture around so we don't burn it to the bottom as well?
Yeah, chocolate, like I said earlier, you don't want to cook it too fast because it can burn very easily. And it takes on that burnt flavor like no other. So you definitely want to do a slow melt. Perfect, it's looking great. Alright, I think it's about right. And whatever's left will melt continually. Yeah, so we're going to put about a cup of normal rolled oats. These are the quick cook oats. If you use the regular rolled oats, they won't cook fast enough. You want the 1 minute oats. That's perfect.
It looks delicious.
The best thing about these cookies is that they are guaranteed gluten-free.
That'll be good.
There you go, perfect. Okay, so now we're going to scoop it out.
Just by the spoonfuls. We're scooping a lot today, huh?
It's my favorite way to cook and bake. Yep, that's perfect size too. Just about the same size as the baking powder biscuits. Maybe a little bit smaller, but your discretion. Some people like them big, some people like them small, little bites so that they don't feel as guilty. They can just keep eating them and say, oh, I just ate about the equivalent of one.
Well, and who can't resist chocolate? Let's be honest.
Chocolate and peanut butter together. This reminds me of the holidays. I am so excited to have Christmas nearby, to get the family together. This could be a treat that you could serve to your family when they come. And it would be a favorite, I can guarantee that.
Well, and it definitely don't have to heat up the oven very much at all either.
Exactly.
It is a perfect dozen.
Yes, perfect.
Looks like someone's gonna fight over who gets to
Yeah.
lick the pan too with a spoon.
Oh yeah. And you know, as we said earlier, this was bittersweet. You could do milk chocolate if you wanted something very rich, or you could do dark chocolate for kind of a healthier treat. All right. So now we're going to take a little break. Julie is going to give us a quick tip on some alternatives that you could do with some of the meals that we've done. And when you come back, we'll show the finished product.
So I really enjoyed Brenna's soup. I think you will too. For some of you though, it may be a little spicy. It was for me. I tend to like things pretty mild. So what happens if you do end up making, let's say, chili or a soup, and it's a little too hot for your taste? What are some things that you can do to tone it down? The best is actually prevention. If you are trying a new recipe for the first time, I recommend that whatever the hot spices in it, to reduce them to half. You can always add a little bit more. But in this case, if you do go ahead and make it as the recipe calls and you find out it's too hot, there are a number of things that you can do. The surprising thing is the counterbalance to the hot spiciness is a sweetener. It's sugar. What works best for a sweetener though is honey. If you use granulated sugar, a lot of times too much honey can cause the flavor of the soup to change, so you don't want to use too much. If you don't use honey, I would recommend brown sugar. The other things you can do is, let's say, double all of the vegetables that you used in there. Just don't add any more spices. The good thing is that soup and chili, they freeze well. Another thing that is helpful that I've read from listeners is putting in lemon peel and a little bit of lemon juice. Be sure you buy organic and wash the peel first. Put it in there, let it sit for a while, and then pull the peel out before serving. Other advice that I would give is to put a little pinch of baking soda. That also helps tone down the spiciness. And one of the best vegetables to put in there is actually carrots. It's sweet, and yet it will also reduce the acid. And in the case of Brenna's soup, if it is a milk-based, which it was, you can add, let's say, a pint of sour cream. That will also help, and adding some more potatoes, or make your own recipe. Put maybe a can of great northern beans or some navy beans in it, which will actually add to the flavor of the soup and help to absorb some of the spices. Anyway, that's some hints for people that like their food a little bit more mild, like me.
And welcome back. So we're going to test the soup here and see if it's done.
So we can pull back this kale. It's all on top right now and just kind of
Pierce the potatoes. Ooh,
they're looking real tender and nice. All right.
So serve up some of the soup. Oh my goodness. Now should you dig deep to get some of the sausage?
You're going to want to. That first scoop's going to be hard to dig deep and get past all of those potatoes and
you
kale.
probably want to get some broth later, yeah.
Now the trick is you don't want to fill the bowls too full because there is, as you can see on your recipe sheet, there is some cream involved in this. Now this is a great option for those of you who are gluten-free or lactose. You can cut out the cream in this recipe. We add about probably a tablespoon or a little more to each bowl. Gives you options. And you can salt and pepper as you please. So nice little bit, a little more. There we go. You want it floating on top there, and it creams up the soup quite nice. And we can also add a nice little pinch of salt and pepper in there as well. Just to top it off. Since we haven't salted or peppered the seasoning of the base of the soup. Not too much salt because the sausage does have some.
Yes.
I prefer to do this cream on the side for your guests to decide how much or little, or if they don't want it at all. If not, you can add about a cup to a cup and a half of whipped or heavy cream into your soup to make it creamy and great and ready to eat.
Thank you so much, Brenna.
No problem.
And in just a couple minutes we'll have the biscuits and I'll present it with the soup. But we wanted to get the soup presented when it was in perfect state.
Can't wait to eat it all.
All right, welcome back. So now the biscuits are done. Perfect, we'll set them right over here. The way you know they're done is you look at the bottom and see it's perfectly golden brown. So we have a perfect baking powder biscuit, a nice gluten-free no-bake chocolate cookie, and a delicious Italian soup. And this recipe will be on our website under the Guest Recipes tab. Thank you again, Brenna, for coming. It has just been amazing.
Anytime. I love coming and cooking, and what better way to do it with a friend? So
Excellent.
glad to be here. Are you going to try it though?
Oh yeah.
Bon appetit, right?
And we did add that whipping cream to make it more creamy, but you can do it without. You know, if you have someone in the family that's lactose intolerant. Oh, that is delicious.
See that spice at the end too? It just,
Oh yeah.
a little kick. Perfect.
And then you'll notice with the biscuit, it's perfect inside, very moist. Want to try a piece?
Of course. It's really flaky and a little crispy on the outside, which is perfect.
Very good.
I
Yeah.
like the sweet too.
And then we can try some of this cookie here.
Oh my gosh. Can't turn down chocolate ever.
Perfect way to complete the meal as well.
That's really rich. It's delicious.
Well, with all the cold weather that comes with winter and fall, this will be perfect to warm you up. Thanks again for joining us for this evening. And as always, keep cooking with Kevin.
Bye.